The snow crunched under Quinn Reynolds' boots as he struggled to balance both his daughter's mittened hand and the battered saw he'd borrowed from his neighbor. He couldn't afford to buy a Christmas tree this year, not after the hospital bills, but he'd be damned if 7-year-old Lily would wake up Christmas morning without one. "Are we almost there, Daddy?" Lily asked, her breath forming little clouds in the December air. Her pink knit hat was sliding off one ear, and Quinn paused to adjust it. "Almost, Princess. Mr. Chen said the community cutting area is just up ahead." He smiled down at her, hiding the worry that had become his constant companion since Angela's death 3 years ago. Single fatherhood was hard enough. Single fatherhood with mounting debt and a job that barely covered rent was something else entirely. They trudged further into the wooded area on the outskirts of Mapleton, following handmade signs to the designated Christmas tree cutting zone. The town allowed residents to cut their own trees for a small fee, $15, that Quinn had carefully set aside from his last paycheck as a maintenance worker at the local elementary school. "Look, Daddy, that one," Lily broke free, running toward a modest pine about 5 feet tall. It was thin in some spots, but Quinn could already envision positioning those bare patches against the wall of their small apartment. "Good eye, Lil, that's perfect." He knelt down in the snow, positioning the saw against the trunk. "Stand back, okay?" As Quinn began sawing, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Probably his boss asking if he could cover another shift tomorrow. He'd been picking up every extra hour he could get, especially with school out for the holidays. He ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. 10 minutes and a sore arm later, Quinn stood up, wiping sweat despite the cold. "Timber," he called softly as the tree tilted and fell with a soft whoosh into the snow. Lily clapped her mittened hands. "It's perfect, Daddy." Quinn grabbed the trunk, preparing for the long drag back to his rusty pickup truck, when he noticed a commotion several yards away. A woman in an expensive-looking coat was attempting to drag a massive Fraser fir by herself, the tree clearly winning the battle. "Wait here a second, Lil," Quinn said, propping their modest pine against a nearby tree. "Someone needs help." He trudged through the snow toward the struggling woman. As he got closer, he could see she was dressed impeccably camel hair coat, leather boots that definitely weren't bought at the discount store, and a cashmere scarf that probably cost more than his weekly paycheck. "Need a hand with that," Quinn called. The woman looked up, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. For a moment, Quinn forgot the cold, the bills piling up at home, and the extra shift he'd have to work tomorrow. She had the most striking amber eyes he'd ever seen, framed by long lashes now dusted with snowflakes. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, her voice warm with relief. "I've clearly overestimated my tree-dragging abilities," Quinn chuckled. "It happens to the best of us. That's quite a tree you've got there." "I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it?" She laughed, a sound that reminded Quinn of wind chimes. "I have this enormous foyer with cathedral ceilings, and every year I tell myself I'll get something reasonable, but then I see these beautiful giants and lose all sense of proportion." Quinn tried not to react to the casual mention of cathedral ceilings. He and Lily lived in a 1-bedroom apartment where she slept in the bedroom and he took the pull-out couch. "I'm Quinn." "Quinn Reynolds," he said, extending his hand. "Winter Silverstone," she replied, shaking his hand with a firm grip. Her fingers were soft but cold, and he resisted the urge to hold on longer than necessary to warm them. "Daddy, is this your tree?" Lily had appeared at his side, looking up at Winter with unabashed curiosity. "This is my daughter, Lily," Quinn explained. "And no, Princess, this isn't our tree. We're just helping." "Winter," the woman supplied with a smile, crouching down to Lily's level. "And yes, this is my tree. I'm afraid I got a bit carried away. What do you think? Too big?" Lily's eyes widened. "It's the most beautiful tree ever. It's like the ones in the movies." Winter laughed again. "That's exactly what I was thinking." Quinn cleared his throat. "Let me help you get this to your car. Lily, can you wait by our tree, please? I'll be right back." Lily nodded and skipped back to their modest pine while Quinn grabbed the trunk of Winter's massive tree. My SUV is just at the main lot, Winter explained, grabbing a branch to help guide the tree. I really appreciate this. I don't know what I was thinking, coming out here alone. Quinn grunted as he lifted the tree. It was heavier than it looked. No problem, consider it my good deed for the day. They made slow progress through the snow, Quinn occasionally stealing glances at the beautiful woman walking beside him. There was something about her that seemed both confident and vulnerable at the same time. So, do you live in Mapleton? He asked, attempting conversation despite the exertion. Just outside, actually. I have a place on Ridgewood Lane. Quinn nearly dropped the tree. Ridgewood Lane was the most exclusive address in the county, where homes started at 7 figures. He'd done some maintenance work there once, fixing a leaky roof for an elderly couple who had been the rare kind souls to treat him like a person rather than hired help. Nice area, he managed. It's too much space for one person, honestly, she said, surprising him with her candor. But it was my grandmother's house, and I couldn't bear to sell it after she passed. They reached the parking lot, where a sleek black Range Rover sat waiting. Quinn helped Winter secure the tree to the roof rack, his calloused hands working efficiently with the bungee cords she produced from the back of the vehicle. There you go, he said, stepping back to admire their handiwork. That should hold all the way to Ridgewood. Winter looked at him with those amber eyes, snowflakes catching in her dark lashes. Thank you so much, Quinn. You really saved me. Happy to help, he replied, suddenly aware of his worn jacket and the hole in the right knee of his jeans. Merry Christmas. Wait, Winter said as he turned to leave. She dug into her purse and pulled out her wallet. Quinn immediately shook his head. No, please, I don't want money. It was just a neighborly thing to do. Winter looked surprised, then smiled. Actually, I was going to give you my card. I own a restoration company, Winter's Wonders. We renovate historic homes. I'm always looking for skilled maintenance people. She handed him a thick, cream-colored business card with elegant silver lettering. Quinn took it, trying to hide his embarrassment. Thank you, he said. I should get back to Lily. We've got our own tree to deal with, Winter nodded. Of course. Merry Christmas to both of you. Quinn trudged back to where Lily was waiting patiently beside their modest pine. Ready to go home, princess? Lily nodded, but looked back toward where Winter was climbing into her Range Rover. She was pretty, Daddy, Quinn smiled despite himself. Yes, she was. And nice, Lily added. Yes, that too. Quinn hefted their small tree and began dragging it toward his truck, pushing thoughts of amber eyes and wind chime laughter from his mind. Women like Winter Silverstone didn't end up with men like him. That was just the way the world worked. What Quinn didn't see was Winter watching them from her SUV, a thoughtful expression on her face as she observed the tall, broad-shouldered man and the little girl in the pink hat making their way across the snow-covered lot. The following Monday, Quinn was on a ladder in the school gymnasium, replacing a fluorescent light fixture when his phone buzzed. The number wasn't familiar, but he answered anyway, balancing precariously on the top rung. Quinn Reynolds. Hello, Quinn. This is Winter Silverstone. We met at the Christmas tree farm. Quinn nearly dropped the screwdriver he was holding. Yes, of course. Hello. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. He looked around the empty gym at the half-finished light fixture and decided this call was worth a short pause. No, it's fine. What can I do for you? Well, I have a bit of an emergency. The pipes in one of my rental properties have frozen and burst, and my regular contractor is out of town for the holidays. I remembered you mentioned working in maintenance, and I wondered if you might be able to help for a fair rate, of course. Quinn's heart raced. Extra work meant extra money, and extra money meant maybe he could get Lily that art set she'd been eyeing in the window of Bartlett's stationery. I could take a look after my shift ends today, around 4. That would be perfect, Winter replied, relief evident in her voice. The property is on Elm Street, number 42. It's a Victorian I'm in the middle of restoring. Quinn knew the house everyone in town did. It was a once magnificent building that had fallen into disrepair over decades of neglect. Rumor had it some wealthy out-of-towner had bought it and was pouring money into bringing it back to life. Now he knew who that out-of-towner was. "I'll be there," Quinn promised. "Thank you so much." "You're a lifesaver." After they hung up, Quinn stared at his phone for a long moment before returning to the light fixture. It was just a job, he reminded himself. Nothing more. At exactly 4 o'clock, Quinn pulled his truck up to the curb in front of 42 Elm Street. The 3-story Victorian loomed against the gray December sky, scaffolding covering one side and a construction dumpster in the driveway. Despite its unfinished state, Quinn could see the potential. The gingerbread trim and stained glass windows spoke of craftsmanship that was rare in modern buildings. He grabbed his toolbox from the truck bed and approached the front porch, noting the new Brazilian hardwood planks that had replaced what had likely been rotting boards. Before he could knock, the door swung open. Winter stood in the doorway, dressed in jeans and a simple gray sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more accessible somehow, without the expensive coat and makeup she'd worn at the tree farm. "You found it," she said with a smile. "It's not exactly inconspicuous," Quinn replied, gesturing to the scaffold-covered house. Winter laughed. "True, come in, I'll show you the disaster zone." Quinn followed her inside, trying not to gawk at the work in progress. The foyer featured partially restored herringbone hardwood floors, crystal chandeliers still wrapped in protective plastic, and walls stripped down to the lath in some areas, beautifully wallpapered in others. "This place is going to be incredible," he said, genuinely impressed. Winter beamed. "Thank you. It's my passion project. The damage is in the kitchen this way." She led him through a dining room with soaring ceilings to a large kitchen at the back of the house. One wall was completely opened up, pipes exposed where cabinetry had been removed. Water had pooled on the subfloor, and ice had formed where it had seeped through an exterior wall. Quinn set his toolbox down and got to work, examining the damage while Winter explained her renovation plans for the space. As he worked, he found himself increasingly impressed with her knowledge of historic homes and restoration techniques. This wasn't some rich person's vanity project. Winter clearly knew what she was talking about. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked as he cut away damaged drywall to access the burst pipe. "Professionally, about 8 years, Winter replied, handing him a tool before he even asked for it. "But I've been obsessed with old houses since I was a kid. My grandmother's house, the one on Ridgewood, was built in 1892. I used to follow the maintenance workers around asking questions until they probably wanted to lock me in the coat closet." Quinn laughed. "Lily's the same way, always asking how things work, wanting to help fix stuff around the apartment." Winter smiled. "She seems like a great kid." "The best," Quinn agreed, feeling the familiar mixture of pride and anxiety that accompanied thoughts of his daughter. "She's with my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, right now. The school's out for winter break, but I've still got my regular shifts plus whatever extra work I can pick up." He hadn't meant to reveal so much about his situation, but something about Winter made it easy to talk. "It must be challenging, balancing everything on your own," Winter said quietly. Quinn focused on the pipe he was repairing. "We manage. Her mother passed away 3 years ago, cancer. It was tough, but Lily's resilient." "I'm so sorry," Winter said, and the genuine empathy in her voice made Quinn look up. Their eyes met for a long moment before he turned back to the pipe. "Thanks. What about you? Any family nearby?" Winter shook her head. "My parents are in Arizona. Retired there a few years ago. My grandmother raised me, mostly. She passed last year." "I'm sorry for your loss," Quinn echoed her earlier sentiment. They worked in companionable silence for a while, Quinn repairing the pipe and Winter cleaning up water damage. By the time he had the immediate problem fixed and a temporary solution in place, until supplies for a permanent repair could be obtained, 2 hours had passed. "You're really good at this," Winter said as Quinn packed up his tools. Years of practice, he replied with a shrug. Old buildings and I understand each other, Winter laughed. I know exactly what you mean. She pulled out her checkbook. What do I owe you? Quinn named a fair price for his time, deliberately on the lower end of what a contractor would charge. When Winter wrote the check, he noticed she'd added $50. This is too much, he started to protest. It's not, she interrupted firmly. You dropped everything to help me and you did excellent work. I don't underpay people, Quinn, he nodded, accepting the check. Thank you. As he headed for the door, Winter followed. I have several other properties I'm working on, she said casually. I could use someone with your skills on a regular basis if you're interested. The pay would be good and the hours flexible. Quinn turned to face her. Are you offering me a job? More like a partnership on certain projects. You'd still be independent, but I'd give you first option on the work. I need someone who understands old houses and doesn't take shortcuts. It sounded too good to be true. Why me? You barely know me, Winter smiled. I'm a good judge of character. And craftsmanship. You have both. Quinn hesitated. A steady stream of extra work could mean paying down his debt faster, maybe even starting a college fund for Lily. But he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this offer than professional appreciation. Can I think about it? Of course, Winter replied. No pressure, here. She handed him another business card. My cell phone is on there. Call me anytime. As Quinn drove to Mrs. Chen's apartment to pick up Lily, his mind raced with possibilities. The additional income would be a game changer, but working closely with Winter might be complicated. He couldn't deny the attraction he felt, but he also couldn't afford to misread the situation. Women like Winter didn't look twice at men like him. She probably just needed reliable help, nothing more. By the time he pulled into Mrs. Chen's driveway, he'd convinced himself that was all it was, a business proposition. But when Lily bounded out to his truck, full of stories about her day, the first thing she asked was, Did you see the pretty tree lady again, Daddy? Quinn couldn't help but smile. Yes, Princess, I did. Was her tree as big as she said it would be? I didn't see her tree, honey. I was helping her fix a broken pipe in another house. Lily buckled her seatbelt and looked at him seriously. I hope you'll see her again. She made you smile the real way. Quinn glanced at his daughter. The real way? Uh-huh. Not the pretend smile you do when you're worried about money or Miss Mommy. The smile that goes in your eyes, too. Out of the mouths of babes. Quinn felt his chest tighten with emotion. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? Lily just grinned. Can we have mac and cheese for dinner? Sure thing, Princess. That night, after Lily was asleep, Quinn sat at their small kitchen table with Winter's business card in his hand. Before he could overthink it, he texted her. I'd like to discuss your offer more. When would be a good time? The response came quickly. Tomorrow evening. I could meet you at Bridget's cafe at 6. Quinn thought about his schedule. I pick Lily up from Mrs. Chen's at 5:30. Could we make it 6:30? Or I'd need to bring her along. There was a brief pause before the reply. Bring her along. I'd love to meet her properly. Bridget's at 6:30. Quinn stared at his phone, unsure if he'd just made a date or a business meeting or both. The next evening, Quinn found himself fussing over his appearance more than usual. He settled on his newest pair of jeans, only 1 winter old, and a dark blue button-down shirt that Angela had always said brought out his eyes. Lily watched him critically as he combed his hair. Are you nervous, Daddy? Quinn looked at his daughter's reflection in the bathroom mirror. A little bit. This is an important job opportunity. Lily nodded sagely. And she's pretty. Quinn turned to face her. Hey, this is about work, okay? Miss Silverstone needs help with her houses and I need the extra money, that's all. Okay, Daddy, Lily said, but her tone made it clear she didn't believe him. Sometimes Quinn wondered if Angela had somehow transferred all her intuition to their daughter before she died. They arrived at Bridget's cafe a few minutes early. The cozy restaurant was decorated for Christmas, with twinkling lights and garland draped across the exposed brick walls. Quinn and Lily had just been seated when Winter walked in. She spotted them immediately and waved, making her way to their booth. She wore black pants and a soft-looking emerald sweater that complemented her olive skin. Several heads turned as she passed, but she seemed oblivious to the attention. "Hi, Quinn," she said warmly, then turned to Lily. "And you must be Lily. It's nice to meet you properly." Lily beamed. "I like your sweater. Green is my favorite color." "Mine too," Winter replied, sliding into the booth across from them. "Thank you for letting me crash your dinner." After they ordered Lily choosing chocolate chip pancakes, Quinn a burger, and Winter a salad, the conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Winter asked Lily about school and her interests, listening intently to the 7-year-old's animated responses about her art class and how she was learning to read chapter books. "I'm reading Charlotte's Web right now," Lily announced proudly. "That's one of my favorites," Winter replied. "I had a copy that was so worn out the pages were falling out." "Did you fix it?" Lily asked. "Daddy fixes everything." Winter glanced at Quinn with a smile that made his heart skip. "I bet he does. And no, I couldn't fix my book, but I still have it somewhere. Maybe someday I'll find someone who can restore it." Their food arrived, and as they ate, Winter outlined her proposal. She had 5 properties in various stages of renovation, all historic homes she was saving from demolition or decay. She needed someone who understood old buildings and could handle everything from emergency repairs to restoration of original features. "The pay would be $35 an hour, and I can guarantee at least 20 hours a week," Winter explained. "More during heavy renovation phases." Quinn nearly choked on his burger. That was nearly double what he made at the school. "That's very generous," he managed. Winter shrugged. "It's the going rate for skilled restoration work. I don't believe in cutting corners, especially when it comes to preserving history." Lily, who had been quietly eating her pancakes and drawing on the kids' menu, looked up. "Does that mean Daddy would fix old houses like yours?" Winter nodded. "Exactly. Your dad has a special talent for understanding what old buildings need." "He's the best fixer in the whole world," Lily declared loyally. Winter's amber eyes met Quinn's over Lily's head. "I believe that." After dinner, as they walked to their cars in the light snow that had begun to fall, Winter handed Quinn a folder. "Here's the formal offer with all the details. Take your time to think about it." Quinn took the folder. "Thank you for dinner and for the opportunity." "Thank you for considering it," Winter replied. She crouched down to Lily's level. "And thank you for sharing your daddy with me for dinner. Maybe next time we can get ice cream for dessert." Lily's eyes widened. "Even though it's winter," Winter laughed. "Ice cream is good all year round. That's why my parents named me Winter, because I used to beg for ice cream even when there was snow on the ground." Lily giggled. "I like your name. It's pretty like you." Quinn felt his cheeks warm despite the cold. "Lily." "It's okay," Winter said, standing up with a smile. "That's a lovely compliment." She looked at Quinn. "She's wonderful, Quinn. You're doing an amazing job." Something in her voice, in the sincerity of her eyes, made Quinn's throat tighten. "Thank you," he said quietly. Winter hesitated, then leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Call me when you've decided. Good night, Quinn. Good night, Lily." As she walked to her car, Lily looked up at Quinn with a knowing smile. "She likes you, Daddy, the real way." Quinn watched Winter drive away, the folder clutched in his hand. "Maybe, Princess, maybe." Over the next 2 days, Quinn couldn't stop thinking about Winter's offer. The money would change everything for him and Lily, and the flexible hours meant he could be there for his daughter more consistently. He decided to accept, but something held him back from making the call. It was Lily who finally pushed him into action. "Daddy, when are you going to call the tree lady? Christmas is coming and she might need help decorating her big tree." Quinn laughed. "Is that so?" Lily nodded solemnly. "A tree that big needs at least 3 people to decorate it." Quinn looked at his daughter's hopeful face and realized he was being ridiculous. Winter had made a business offer, and his attraction to her was no reason to turn down good work. He picked up his phone and dialed her number. "Quinn," Winter answered on the second ring. "I was hoping you'd call." "I've been thinking about your offer," he began. And her voice held a note of anticipation that gave him pause. I'd like to accept. The terms are more than fair and the work sounds interesting. That's wonderful, Winter exclaimed. When can you start? After the holidays. I have my regular job until school starts back up in January, but I could work evenings and weekends until then. That's perfect, Winter said. Actually, I was going to ask. I'm having a small Christmas party at my house this weekend. Nothing fancy, just a few friends and colleagues. Would you and Lily like to come? It could be a good chance for you to meet some of the people you'll be working with. Quinn hesitated. A party at Ridgewood Lane was definitely outside his comfort zone. As if sensing his reluctance, Winter added, there will be other kids there. My project manager has 2 about Lily's age, and I promise it's really casual. That sounds nice, Quinn found himself saying. What time? Saturday at 6. I'll text you the address. After they hung up, Quinn stared at his phone, wondering what he'd just gotten himself and Lily into. A Christmas party at a millionaire's mansion wasn't exactly their usual holiday activity. Saturday evening found Quinn and Lily standing on the steps of a grand colonial revival house on Ridgewood Lane. Quinn had splurged on a new sweater for himself and a red velvet dress for Lily. They'd picked up a modest hostess gift, a potted poinsettia that now seemed woefully inadequate as Quinn took in the magnificent wreath on the front door and the tasteful white lights outlining every window. This house is like a castle, Lily whispered, clutching his hand. Remember your manners, Quinn whispered back, ringing the doorbell. The door swung open to reveal Winter, stunning in a simple black dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. You came, she said, her face lighting up. Come in, it's freezing out there. They stepped into a foyer that made Quinn gasp despite himself. Soaring ceilings, a grand staircase, and at the center of it all, the massive Christmas tree he'd helped Winter load onto her car. It was decorated with vintage glass ornaments and tiny white lights, reaching nearly to the second-floor landing. Your tree, Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide. It's even prettier than I imagined, Winter laughed. Thank you. I couldn't have gotten it home without your dad's help. She led them further into the house, introducing them to the dozen or so guests already mingling with drinks and appetizers. As promised, there were several children who quickly invited Lily to join them in what Winter called the game room. She'll be fine, Winter assured Quinn as Lily disappeared with her new friends. My assistant Mariah is supervising. She's amazing with kids. Quinn nodded, accepting the glass of wine Winter offered. Your home is incredible. Thank you. It's been in my family for generations. My grandmother left it to me when she passed. Winter's eyes held a hint of sadness. I grew up here. It's too big for just me, but I could never sell it. I understand, Quinn said, though his own childhood home had been a modest 3-bedroom ranch his parents had sold years ago. As the evening progressed, Quinn found himself relaxing. Winter's friends were surprisingly down to earth, mostly people involved in her restoration business and local historic preservation. He was introduced as Winter's new restoration partner, a title that made him stand a little taller. After dinner, when the children had returned to the game room and the adults were enjoying coffee and dessert in the living room, Winter took Quinn aside. I have something to show you, she said, leading him down a hallway to a cozy study lined with bookshelves. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm light over leather chairs and a massive oak desk. This was my grandfather's study, Winter explained, closing the door partway. It's my favorite room in the house. Quinn looked around appreciatively. It's beautiful. That woodwork is incredible. Winter smiled. I knew you'd notice that. My grandfather was a carpenter before he made his fortune. He hand-carved all the moldings himself. She moved to the desk and picked up a folder. I have a confession to make, Quinn. Quinn tensed. What's that? The pipe at the Victorian didn't burst by accident. Winter bit her lip, looking uncharacteristically nervous. I mean, it did burst, but it had been threatening to for weeks. I could have had it fixed before it became an emergency. Quinn frowned. I don't understand. Winter took a deep breath. When I saw you at the tree farm, helping your daughter pick out a Christmas tree, I felt something. Something I haven't felt in a long time. And then when you offered to help me with my tree, expecting nothing in return. She shook her head. I wanted to see you again, but I couldn't just ask you out. You seemed so proud, so independent. So you created a plumbing emergency? Quinn asked, torn between amusement and disbelief. Winter grimaced. Not my finest moment, I admit. But I really did need help with the house, and after seeing you work, I genuinely want you on my team. The job offer is completely legitimate. Quinn processed this information, unsure how to respond. Why are you telling me this now? Winter set the folder down and moved closer to him. Because I don't want our working relationship to start with a lie, even a small one, and because... She paused, meeting his eyes directly. Because I'm interested in more than just your carpentry skills, Quinn Reynolds. Quinn's heart hammered in his chest. Winter, I'm a single dad with a mountain of medical debt and a job that barely pays the bills. You're a woman who knows what she wants, Winter interrupted. And who recognized something special when she saw a man gently help his daughter pick out a Christmas tree, then offer assistance to a stranger without expecting anything in return. She reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm, steady. I'm not asking for anything right now, just openness to possibilities. Quinn looked down at their joined hands, then back at Winter's amber eyes. I'm not looking for charity, not for me, not for Lily. Good, because I'm not offering any, Winter replied firmly. I'm offering a fair job and the possibility of getting to know each other better. That's all. Quinn was silent for a long moment, weighing her words. Finally, he squeezed her hand gently. I think I can be open to possibilities. Winter's smile was like sunrise. That's all I ask. The moment was interrupted by the sound of children's laughter in the hallway. They stepped apart as Lily poked her head into the room. Daddy, Miss Winter, come quick. It's snowing really hard, and Zach says we can build a snowman in the backyard. Winter looked at Quinn, eyebrows raised in question. He nodded, and she turned to Lily with a grin. I think that's a brilliant idea. I happen to have some excellent snowman building supplies in the mudroom. Let me get my coat. As they followed Lily down the hall, Winter's hand brushed against Quinn's, and he found himself reaching out to catch her fingers with his own. The smile she gave him held promise of what, exactly, he wasn't sure. But for the first time in 3 years, Quinn Reynolds was looking forward to finding out. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind. Quinn began working evenings and weekends on Winter's restoration projects, discovering a passion for historic preservation he hadn't known he possessed. Winter often worked alongside him, her knowledge of period details and architectural history complementing his practical skills. Lily quickly became comfortable at Winter's house, where they often ended up after Quinn finished work. The spacious game room became her favorite place, with Winter teaching her to play chess and helping with her reading. The three of them fell into an easy rhythm, sharing meals and weekend outings that felt increasingly like family time. By Christmas Eve, Quinn knew he was falling in love with Winter Silverstone. What surprised him more was the growing certainty that she felt the same way. They spent Christmas Eve at Quinn and Lily's apartment, decorating their modest tree and baking cookies. When Lily finally went to bed, vibrating with excitement for the morning, Quinn and Winter sat on the couch, a single lamp and the tree lights illuminating the small living room. Thank you for coming tonight, Quinn said quietly. It means a lot to Lily, and to me. Winter leaned her head against his shoulder. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Quinn took a deep breath. Winter, these past weeks have been, I never expected any of this when I helped you with that tree. Winter looked up at him, her amber eyes serious in the low light. Do you remember what Lily said that night at the restaurant, about ice cream being good even in winter? Quinn nodded, unsure where she was going with this. I've spent most of my adult life being practical, sensible, building my business, preserving old houses, honoring my grandparents' legacy. And I've been, Not unhappy exactly, but incomplete. Winter took his hand. Then I saw you with Lily at the tree farm and something just clicked, like finding the missing piece of a historic home that makes everything else make sense. Quinn's throat tightened with emotion. Winter. I'm not saying we have all the answers, she continued. But I know what I feel when I'm with you and Lily. It's like ice cream in winter, unexpected, maybe a little impractical, but absolutely right. Quinn cupped her face in his hands and kissed her, gently at first, then with growing certainty. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm in love with you, he whispered. I think I have been since you laughed in the snow about your ridiculous tree. Winter's smile was radiant. I love you too, Quinn Reynolds. You and your wonderful daughter and your ability to see the potential in things others might overlook. Outside, snow began to fall, coating Mapleton in a fresh blanket of white. Inside Quinn's modest apartment, a formerly struggling single dad and a millionaire who restored historic homes held each other close, both certain they had found something worth preserving. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear. Quinn woke to the sound of Lily's excited footsteps running toward his pull-out couch. Winter had gone home the night before, but was coming back for Christmas breakfast. Daddy, wake up. Santa came. Quinn sat up, rubbing his eyes. Did he now? Well, let's see what he brought. They moved to the small tree, where several carefully wrapped packages waited. Quinn had splurged a bit this year, the extra income from Winter's projects allowing him to buy Lily the art set she wanted and a few books and toys besides. As Lily tore into her gifts with typical 7-year-old enthusiasm, there was a knock at the door. Quinn opened it to find Winter standing there, arms loaded with packages and a bag that smelled suspiciously of fresh cinnamon rolls. Merry Christmas, she said, kissing him as she entered. Miss. Winter, Santa came, Lily exclaimed, rushing to show off her new treasures. I see that, Winter said, setting down her burdens to admire Lily's gifts. He must know what a good girl you are. After breakfast, Winter handed Quinn a small box. This is for you. Inside, he found an antique carpenter's plane, lovingly restored. It was my grandfather's, Winter explained. I think he'd want you to have it. Quinn was speechless, running his fingers over the smooth wood and polished metal. Winter, I can't. You can, she insisted. It should be used by someone who understands its value. Quinn pulled her close, kissing her temple. Thank you, I'll treasure it. Winter turned to Lily next, handing her a flat package. Inside was a first edition of Charlotte's Web, carefully restored, but still showing signs of being well loved. My copy, Winter explained as Lily gasped in delight. I found someone who could fix it after all. As Lily carefully turned the pages, Quinn took Winter's hand and led her to the window. Outside, the world was transformed by snow, pristine and full of possibility. I have something for you too, he said quietly, pulling a small package from his pocket. It's not much. Winter unwrapped it to find a handcrafted wooden ornament in the shape of a Christmas tree. Quinn had carved it himself from a piece of oak salvaged from one of her restoration projects. It's beautiful, she whispered, tracing the delicate details with her fingertip. Look at the back, Quinn said. Winter turned it over to find an inscription. To new beginnings, QL&W, her eyes filled with tears. Oh, Quinn. Too much, he asked, suddenly uncertain. Winter shook her head, clutching the ornament to her chest. Just right, absolutely right. A year later, Quinn and Lily moved into Winter's house on Ridgewood Lane. 6 months after that, they were married in the garden, with Lily serving as flower girl and ring bearer. The millionaire who restored historic homes and the formerly struggling Dad had found in each other something worth preserving. A love built on respect, understanding, and the courage to see the potential in unexpected places. And every December, they cut down a ridiculous tree together, laughing in the snow as they dragged it home. Quinn always insisted on carrying it, and Winter always insisted on helping. Some traditions, after all, were worth maintaining.